News recently dropped that the Biden administration approved airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias in Syria following a rocket strike on an Iraqi airport. This echoes Trump's first major military actions in early 2017 when he signed off on a missile strike against the Syrian Air Force. This is all part of a broader geopolitical conflict and humanitarian crisis in Syria. The tangled interests in the region have led to 3 coalitions vying for control. Today we'll be going over the history of the Syrian civil war and the interests of the belligerents taking part. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The decade-long civil war started off during the Arab Spring protests in 2011. These protests led to revolutions in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Yemen, and Syria, with large protests and rioting elsewhere. Protesters pointed to human rights violations, corruption, unemployment, poverty, and demographic issues as they used major social media platforms to express their grievances and organize. In Syria, ethnic tensions are a large driver of unrest. Large ethnic minorities in the country have been at odds with each other and is a key component in the civil war. There are also major Shia and Christian minorities in the prominently Sunni nation. Poor economic conditions, a 5-year drought, and unkept promises of reform were what broke the camel's back. The initial protests soon turned into a revolution. Radical groups like the Islamic State used the unrest as an opportunity to conquer large swaths of land in Syria and Iraq, leading the United States and its allies to intervene. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was supported by Russia and Iran. The civil war led to a humanitarian crisis with millions of refugees crossing into Turkey and Europe. Turkey then intervened and set up a de-escalation zone in northern Syria. Presently, there are 3 coalitions involved in the conflict. The coalition led by the United States includes Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Kurdish militias, and other NATO-aligned countries. The alliance led by Russia includes Iran, Hezbollah, and various other militias. The final group is Turkey and the Free Syrian Army. NATO involvement in Syria began after the Islamic State conquered much of Syria and Iraq and persecuted minorities, including the Kurds. Their interests in Syria include stopping the proliferation of chemical weapons, installing a pro-Western regime in Syria, and ending the humanitarian crisis that has displaced over 13.5 million people. This coalition has spent billions training and equipping the Kurds and maintains a limited military force on the ground. The Russian coalition involvement in Syria began after Assad requested military support. Russian interests align with propping up Assad to gain an ally and airbase along the Mediterranean Sea. This demonstrates Russia and Iran's goal of contesting American power in the Middle East. The final belligerent in this conflict is Turkey. The NATO ally has butted heads with other countries on how to tackle the issue. The Turkish military moved into Syria to set up a buffer zone to limit the number of refugees coming into the country. Turkey also maintains the NATO-backed Kurdish forces are a terrorist organization due to the insurrectionist Kurdish groups within their borders. One theory to explain the involvement of foreign powers has to do with the proposed Qatar-Turkey pipeline. The theory suggests that the United States and Europe would use the pipeline to reduce Europe's reliance on Russian natural gas. Currently, Europe receives around 40% of its energy imports from Russia, who could cripple Europe's energy supply in the event of war. The current situation in Syria is complex and could easily escalate into a larger war if the belligerents aren't careful. I hope this has given you an understanding of the United States' involvement in Syria and the context of the recent airstrikes there. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.